The orbital city of Helios Spire never went dark. Even at 3 a.m., its endless rings shimmered with cold light, like veins of a living machine pulsing in orbit above the ruined Earth. Marcus Hale sat in his dim apartment, staring at the empty chair across from him. 2 mugs on the table, one untouched, one cold. The silence was heavy, until the door panel chimed. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, the corridor lights flickered, and for a moment he thought the power had failed. But no, the light was reacting to her. She stood there, tall and slender, with skin like liquid silver and faint violet lines glowing beneath the surface, pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. Her eyes, soft lilac, almost transparent, held an expression Marcus couldn't name. Not fear, not sadness, something in between. "You posted the notice for a room," she said quietly. Her voice had a strange resonance, as if 2 tones spoke in perfect harmony. Marcus hesitated. "Yeah, I did. You're Lyra," she replied before he could finish. "I can pay. I don't need much space, just somewhere quiet." Behind Marcus, a small voice interrupted. "Dad, who's that?" Leo stood in the doorway, clutching a small metal ship he'd built from spare parts. His eyes widened as he saw the glowing woman. "She's shining." Lyra's gaze softened. "It's only the residue from my stasis field. It will fade." Marcus blinked. "Stasis field? You mean—" "She just arrived from Cryosector 9, she said simply. "My records say I was asleep for 312 years. The words hit Marcus like a pulse. 3 centuries. He had taken in refugees before, drifters, workers, ex-soldiers, but never anyone like this. Leo whispered, "Dad, she came from the old wars, didn't she?" Lyra turned to the boy, and for the first time her voice softened. "I came from a time when people still believed peace was possible." The silence that followed was deep, heavy, almost sacred. Finally, Marcus stepped aside. "The room's yours. You can stay as long as you need." As she entered, a faint shimmer followed her, particles of light like stardust drifting through the air. For a brief moment, the dull gray of the apartment seemed alive again. Leo tugged at his father's sleeve. "She doesn't blink, Dad." Marcus didn't answer. He just watched her silhouette fade into the dim hallway, the hum of the orbital city echoing like a distant heartbeat. Somewhere deep down, he knew the moment she walked in, their quiet lives had ended. Something extraordinary had just begun.
Morning came slow on Helios Spire. The artificial sun rose behind a veil of static haze, bathing the city in a pale gold glow. Marcus poured recycled coffee into 2 mugs out of habit, then paused, realizing again that his guest hadn't touched hers the night before. Lyra stood by the viewport, motionless, watching the Earth's shadow roll beneath them. She hadn't slept, not once. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the dawn light, and her hair, now dimmer than before, framed a face that looked human in every way, except the stillness. "You've been standing there all night," Marcus said quietly. "I don't sleep," she replied, her voice calm. "Not anymore." Leo was sitting on the couch, pretending to fix his toy ship, but watching her with wide, curious eyes. "You mean never?" Lyra smiled faintly. "When you've dreamt for 300 years, little one, waking up feels like a dream itself." Marcus leaned on the counter, studying her. "You said you were frozen in Cryosector 9. That sector was destroyed before I was born. There's no record of anyone surviving it." Lyra turned slowly. "There wouldn't be." Her eyes glowed faintly as if recalling a memory too heavy to hold. "I was part of a peace envoy. We were meant to end the final war between human colonies and the Aelari Ascendancy." Marcus frowned. "Aelari? That's your people?" "Yes. Or what's left of them." She looked away, voice breaking for the first time. "When the ceasefire failed, the orbital fleets turned the colonies to ash. My ship was hit before the message could be sent. They sealed me in stasis to preserve the archive's archivists." Leo blinked. So you were sleeping while everything ended?" Lyra nodded, her gaze distant. "And when I woke, I found silence." Marcus's throat tightened. "The archives you mentioned, do you still have them?" "I do," she said softly, touching the glowing line along her wrist. "They're coded in my neural lattice. Memories, voices, promises that were never kept." Silence settled over the room again, heavy with the ghosts of a forgotten war. Finally, Marcus said, "You're welcome to stay here, but if the archives are real, someone's going to come looking for you." "I know," she whispered. Her eyes flickered toward the viewport where a faint light blinked in the distance, too steady, too deliberate to be random. A ship's beacon. Marcus followed her gaze and felt a chill crawl up his spine. There already are, aren't they? Lyra didn't answer. She just stared at that flickering light, the past catching up, faster than either of them were ready for.
Marcus sat at his workstation, eyes locked on the flickering beacon beyond the viewport. The radar feed pulsed faintly, each blip a warning that something, or someone, was closing in. The hum of the old ship felt louder tonight, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Lyra stood behind him, the faint light from the console reflecting in her violet eyes. "That isn't a distress beacon," she murmured. "It's a tracking pulse." Marcus's fingers froze above the controls. "Military frequency?" She nodded slowly. "Old Ilari code, but rewritten, adapted." He frowned, scrolling through layers of encryption, his engineer's instinct taking over. "That shouldn't even be possible. Ilari tech is locked. Humans never cracked it." "Until someone did," she said softly. The line of code opened, and Marcus's stomach dropped. The signal wasn't broadcasting from orbit. It was coming from inside Helios Spire. He turned to face her. "You said your archives contained classified data. Peace accords, battle maps, diplomatic records? What else?" Lyra hesitated. For the first time, fear, real fear, crossed her face. "I wasn't only preserving the treaty." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "I was carrying a consciousness, a memory imprint from the human negotiator who was supposed to sign the ceasefire." Marcus blinked. "A copy of a human mind?" She nodded. "He volunteered, said the only way to end the war was to preserve the one thing both species still trusted, him. So I carried his essence in my neural lattice. But when the cryosystems failed, his data fragmented into mine." Marcus stared at her. "So, you're saying that man, the negotiator," Lyra's eyes met his, "was you?" He stepped back. That's impossible. I wasn't even alive then." "No," she whispered. "But his memories, his patterns, they resurfaced. I recognized your face the moment you opened that pod. You are him, not in flesh, but in resonance. His consciousness echoes through your bloodline." The console beeped sharply. Signal spike. Someone had just locked onto our location.
The first explosion hit before the alarms could even register. A deep, metallic thoom rippled through the corridors, making the air itself shudder. Lights flickered. Panels rained sparks. Marcus was already on his feet, slamming commands into the console. "Hull breach, lower decks. Whoever's out there just dropped a kinetic warhead." Lyra's tendrils of luminous hair drifted with the shifting gravity as she steadied herself on the wall. Her voice stayed eerily calm. "They're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to erase what's inside me." Marcus shot her a look. "You mean the data? Or the part of me you think is him?" She didn't answer. Another blast roared through the station, this one closer. Emergency shutters sealed the observation bay, plunging them into red light. Marcus yanked open the floor hats to the maintenance tunnel. "Go!" Lyra hesitated, eyes flicking toward the sealed viewport as though she could still see the stars beyond. "I was frozen for 3 centuries to keep peace alive. If they've found me, peace is already gone." "Then we start it over," Marcus snapped, pulling her down into the tunnel. They crawled through the narrow shaft, the sound of distant gunfire echoing up the middle walls. Gravity flickered again. Somewhere above, the station's stabilizers were failing. "Marcus," Lyra whispered, voice tight. "The soldiers, they're not just human." He glanced through a grate. The boarding party below wore black exosuits with Ilari markings, their helmets sleek and faceless. Joint Task Force, humans and Ilari, working together to stop you. "No," she said softly, "working together to stop us." They reached a junction where the tunnel widened into a vertical shaft. The ladder stretched down into darkness. Marcus swung onto it first. "Engineering decks 2 levels below. If we can reach Bay 12, I can reroute emergency power to the cryo core," Lyra finished. "That's where the imprinted data is stored." He nodded. "We blow the rest, they'll think we're dead." The shaft trembled violently. Lyra nearly lost her grip as debris rained down. Marcus caught her west, pulling her against him. For a second, the chaos above faded, and all that existed was her pulse against his. Then the emergency lights died. In total darkness, Lyra's voice came soft and steady. "He used to hold my hand like this." Marcus swallowed hard. "The negotiator?" "Yes," she whispered. "But his touch never felt like this." He didn't answer. Couldn't. The moment was broken by a mechanical roar from below, the sound of sealed bulkheads giving way. Marcus gritted his teeth. "They've reached engineering. We're out of time." He dropped the last few meters, hitting the floor in a crouch. The corridor ahead was filled with smoke and the scent of burnt circuitry. Through it, the faint blue glow of the cryocore pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra stepped beside him. "That light, it's alive." Marcus stared at it, feeling something stir deep inside. A memory that wasn't his own. A man's voice, distant and calm. "If peace fails, find her again." He blinked, shaken. "I remember that voice." Lyra looked at him in shock. "Then it's starting." From the shadows, metallic footsteps echoed closer. Soldiers, moving fast. Marcus clenched his jaw. "You said they came to erase what's inside you." He lifted his plasma cutter, the glow reflecting off his determined face. "They're gonna have to get through me first."
The cryocore pulsed brighter now, rhythmic, alive, bathing the chamber in a ghostly blue light. The walls vibrated with the station's dying hum, each flicker of power a heartbeat closer to collapse. Marcus stood between the door and Lyra, his plasma cutter aimed at the sealed entrance. The distant clang of approaching soldiers echoed through the vents, steady and mechanical. 40 seconds, maybe less, he muttered. Behind him, Lyra stepped closer to the core. Her violet eyes shimmered, reflecting fragments of light that almost looked conscious. "It's calling me. The imprint. It's waking," she whispered. Marcus glanced over his shoulder. "You sure that's safe?" She smiled faintly. "Nothing about me was ever safe." Her hand touched the crystal surface of the cryocore, and the air around her shifted. The temperature dropped. Tiny ripples of energy moved through the floor like waves across water. Marcus felt it before he saw it. Something ancient stirring. The blue light spread through her veins like threads of fire. Then came the voice. Not hers, not his. Something layered, deep and old. "Protocol Helios, Phase 4. Continuation confirmed." Marcus froze. "What the hell is that?" Lyra turned slowly toward him, her tone doubled. One voice human, the other metallic, echoing over itself. "You were never supposed to remember me, Marcus." He stepped back, confusion breaking through his fear. "What are you talking about? We just met." "No." Her eyes glowed brighter. "You're his echo. The original Marcus died 300 years ago. You're the human continuation, his genetic and cognitive mirror. The protocol was designed to bring us back together, if the truce failed." The sound of boots grew closer. Shouts. The soldiers were at the door now, cutting through the lock. Marcus's grip on the cutter tightened. "So what? I'm some kind of copy?" "Not a copy," Lyra said softly. "A continuation." She stepped closer, placing her glowing hand on his chest. He could feel the hum through her skin. Warm, electric, alive. The cryocore cracked open behind her, releasing a blinding surge of energy. Data streams, billions of luminous threads poured into the air, weaving around them like ribbons of light. Lyra's voice merged with the static. "The peace he died for still has a chance, but it begins with us." The door exploded open. Armored soldiers flooded in. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled Lyra behind the console and fired. Plasma bolts lit the room. Sparks flew as one of the soldiers fell. Another raised his weapon and froze mid-motion as the light from the core wrapped around his slute, turning it to molten glass. Lyra's power erupted fully now. The air was alive with distortion. Reality itself seemed to bend. "Marcus," she said, her eyes glowing like stars, "they'll destroy this station to stop me. We have to leave, now." He looked up at her, half in awe, half in disbelief. "Can you make that happen?" Her faint smile was almost human. "I can do anything, if you remember who you were." The next second, the cryocore imploded. White light swallowed everything.
The light faded like the end of a dream. When Marcus opened his eyes, the world had changed. The air was thick with gold dust drifting in slow motion, and the ground beneath him wasn't metal anymore. It was glass, clear as water, reflecting an endless sky filled with shattered moons. He blinked hard. His body ached, but everything felt lighter. No sound of engines, no soldiers, only a deep, humming silence. "Lyra," his voice cracked. She stood a few meters away, staring at the horizon where the fragments of planets floated like islands in a glowing sea. Her hair, once violet, now shimmered silver blue, every strand alive with faint light. "Where the hell are we?" he asked, pushing himself to his feet. Lyra turned slowly. Her expression was distant, almost reverent. "Not where, Marcus," she said softly. "When?" He frowned. "What do you mean, when?" "This is the continuum, a fragment outside time. It's where the Helios Protocol stored unfinished echoes, memories that refused to die." Marcus looked around. Structures flickered in and out of existence, like ghosts trying to remember their shapes. Cities, ships, and faces made of light. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw himself walking in the distance. "You said I was a continuation? Does that mean I was here before?" Lyra nodded. "All continuations begin here. This is where the original human consciousness was copied, patterned, and given form again. Your soul wasn't recreated, it was recalled." Marcus took a step back, overwhelmed. "So, this place is full of ghosts?" "Not ghosts," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Promises. The ones humanity made before the war. The ones my kind couldn't keep." The air rippled. A faint pulse rolled through the ground, like a heartbeat inside the world itself. Lyra froze. "They found us," she said grimly. "Who?" "The collectors," she said grimly. "They harvest echoes, erase everything left from before the fall." From the golden haze, dark silhouettes emerged, humanoid shapes of shifting glass and smoke, eyes glowing hot white. Their voices weren't words, just vibrating static that crawled under Marcus's skin. Lyra stepped in front of him. Her hands glowed faintly, threads of light coiling around her fingers. "I can hold them off," she said, voice trembling with effort, "but I'll need to merge with the continuum core to open a gate." Marcus shook his head. "You'll burn yourself out." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you'll live. And if you live, maybe the future still remembers him." Before he could argue, she pressed her palm against the ground. The light erupted outward, forming a spiral of floating sigils and fractured code. The collectors screamed as reality itself twisted around them. Marcus grabbed her shoulder. "If you die, none of this matters." She met his eyes. For a moment she looked exactly like the woman from his dreams, the one who whispered his name in a voice he'd never heard before. "I already died once," she said quietly. "This time I get to choose why." The spiral flared, the world folded inward. Marcus reached out, but she was already dissolving into light. Everything went white again. Then, darkness.
The static faded first. Then came the cold. Marcus gasped, air rushing into his lungs like broken glass. He was lying on a steel floor slick with condensation, surrounded by darkness broken only by faint blue emergency lights. Every breath echoed through the hollow chamber. He sat up slowly. His head throbbed. The glass walls were cracked. Beyond them, a distant planet glowed red beneath a dying sun. What the hell? The last thing he remembered was the light. Lyra's hand dissolving in his grip. Then nothing. He pushed himself up, stumbling toward a console flickering weakly in one corner. A single holographic icon blinked on its surface. He hesitated, then tapped it. The air shimmered. Lyra appeared, hazy, translucent, her form glitching in and out like a signal from another lifetime. Her voice, though faint, still carried that calm, melodic tone that always seemed to anchor him. "If you're seeing this, Marcus, then the continuum collapsed, and I didn't make it through." He froze. "But you did. You're in orbit above what's left of Earth. Time, it doesn't move the same way here. For you, it's been minutes. For this world, centuries." He swallowed hard, staring out the viewport. The planet below was scarred, oceans half evaporated, continents stitched with glowing lines of unknown architecture. The collectors couldn't erase everything, she continued. The fragments we saved, the memories, the blueprints of both our species, they seeded something new. A civilization built on what we were. You may still find them, the children of both. Her image flickered again, growing unstable. And Marcus, the truth you wanted, why I remembered you? It wasn't because of memory transfer. It was because your mind and mine were linked long before we met. You were the template, the first human ever scanned for cross-species integration. I was the one who carried your echo. He felt the world tilt beneath him. You mean, I created you? No, she said softly. You completed me. The light around her grew faint, her form dissolving. Find them, Marcus. Tell them, we kept our promise. The projection faded. The chamber went dark again. Marcus stood there, motionless, his reflection staring back at him in the cracked glass, half shadow, half light. Outside, something vast drifted past the viewport, a structure like a city floating through space, powered by both metal and living matter. Its towers glowed in the same blue hue as Lyra's eyes. He exhaled, steady and quiet. All right, Lyra. One last promise. He grabbed his utility pack, slung it over his shoulder, and walked toward the docking bay. The lights flickered on as if the ship itself had been waiting. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Marcus smiled. Let's finish what we started.
The shuttle pierced the upper atmosphere like a falling star, flames licking its hull as clouds of golden dust swirled below. Marcus gripped the controls tight, the landscape stretching into view, vast deserts glimmering with silver veins, mountains carved into impossible shapes, and in the distance, light. A city, alive, breathing. He slowed descent, staring in disbelief. Towers spiraled upward like coral grown from the bones of planets, their surfaces pulsing softly with bioluminescent light. Airships drifted between them, tethered by luminous threads of energy. The architecture was both organic and engineered, metal fused with living tissue, designed far beyond either human or Nalarian craftsmanship. Lyra, he whispered, you did it. The ship's scanners pinged softly, hundreds of life signatures below, but they weren't fully human, nor fully alien. When he landed, the air outside was warm and fragrant with ozone and strange flowers. Children ran across the landing platform, skin tones shifting between bronze and sapphire, eyes glowing faintly in shades of blue-green. One of them stopped and stared at him. Then she smiled. Welcome home, the girl said, voice carrying a melodic undertone that was unmistakably Nalarian. Marcus froze. Home? Before he could answer, figures approached, adults, dressed in robes threaded with energy lines, their faces calm and curious. One of them stepped forward, tall, silver-haired, with markings that shimmered faintly beneath her skin. You are Marcus Donovan, she said, the first human template, the one from the archives. He blinked. How do you know that name? The woman smiled gently. Because she told us you'd come. Marcus's heart stumbled in his chest. Lyra? The woman turned, gesturing toward the horizon, where a colossal structure rose from the center of the city. It wasn't made of metal. It was crystal, translucent, alive, its surface rippling with light. Inside it, shapes moved like memories suspended in liquid glass. She became our core, the woman said softly, not as a machine, but as a guardian consciousness. Her thoughts are woven through everything you see, the systems, the crops, even the wind. She kept us alive when the sun began to fail. We call her the remembering light. Marcus walked forward slowly, his boots echoing against the glowing path. The people bowed their heads as they passed, not out of worship, but recognition. He reached the edge of the crystal structure. It hummed at his presence, like a heartbeat aligning with his own. Then her voice came, faint, soft, everywhere. You found them. Marcus smiled through the sting in his eyes. Yeah, and they're beautiful. So are you, finally. He laughed, a raw human sound. What now, Lyra? Now, Marcus? Live. The future doesn't need rebuilding. It's already begun. The crystal pulsed, once, twice, then stilled,
glowing with a calm, eternal light. Marcus stood there in silence, surrounded by the children of two worlds. The war, the loss, the centuries of separation, all of it had led here. He looked up at the twin moons rising over the city that remembered her, and whispered, "We did it." And for the first time in human memory, both the stars and the children of the stars shone together as one.